Hello there, people. It is time. It is ranting time, baby. I have waited for a while, a couple of days, to get this off my chest because, I want to just unleash the fury on this movie that I saw in the theater yesterday afternoon. I could not believe what a lackluster sequel this was, and that is Expendables 3. This is a matinee ticket I got that I found. No, I did not pay for this movie because guess what? This was a big disappointment, especially for Stallone. I mean, what the hell were you thinking, Sly, when you wrote the story for Expendables 3? I love the first movie, okay? I have the first movie on DVD. Let me get it for a second, just to prove it to you that I have the first movie. This movie was badass back in 2010. How could you take this movie and make the third one and write a story that's toned down and freaking watered down and boring and just completely lackluster? I mean, replacing these guys was a big mistake. I'm glad that Bruce Willis and Mickey Rourke and a bunch of other people did not come back, because if they, the third film just shit on the whole franchise. This film was badass. The second film, while it has problems, and I know a lot of people on YouTube were like meh, or they didn't like the film, I can forgive that because it at least was still R-rated. And although it had the comedy in it, it still had more rewatchability. This also was freaking awesome. I saw this in the theater when it came out, and it was a hit, and it was awesome, and we thought it would spawn a great franchise, and instead we get this lackluster sequel that comes out and shits on the whole thing, man. I can't believe this. I'm glad that this movie bombed. This isn't a prime example of Hollywood being so freaking lazy that they will not make a sequel right, and they would just rush it to get it out in theaters, and then it bombs, and they wonder, and they blame piracy? My ass, it's not a piracy. Piracy didn't make this movie flop. They said the same thing about Fast 5 back in 2011, and that movie was the most pirated movie that year in the summer. I don't want to hear excuses. There are many reasons why this film sucks. I'm going to name a few things that I did like in the film, and then I'm going to just rip this movie a new asshole, because I know there's a lot of people on YouTube that wanted me to do this, and I know for good things. The score isn't that bad. I think the score is decent for what it is. Not as good as the first one, but it's still a decent score. Some of the newbies like Harrison Ford and Kelsey Grammer and Wesley Snipes, they're the only good new people in the film. Everybody else was freaking terrible. I'll get to that. 3. The first half of the film, when the Expendables are there's some decent moments, but you can tell there was a lot of things watered down, and I'll get to that soon. 4. Some of the camera shots, the director Patrick Hughes knows how to film a little bit, with some of the wide-angle shots and some of the action, but there's just way too much shaky cam, and I'm getting sick of that. And 5 would probably be that the film, at least it wasn't 2 hours and 40 minutes like Transformers 4, but that's it. Everything else, and some of the acting was okay by Stallone, Arnold, and a couple of others, but that's it. The rest of this movie was freaking terrible. The story sucked. Oh, okay, here's the story in a nutshell without being too long. The Expendables have to find freaking Mel Gibson's character, who was an original Expendable, who created the whole thing, and they have to stop him. That's basically what the story is. But instead of having Jason Statham and Terry Crews and freaking Randy Couture and Dolph Lundgren and Jet Li, and be with with freaking Stallone, they get their asses handed to them, against Mel Gibson. He nukes the freaking place that they go to find him, and then Hail Caesar, Terry Crews gets injured, and then he's hospitalized, and then Sly has to break up the team for whatever reason. Are you freaking kidding me? The whole reason we saw the first film, Sly, was to see you and your boys kick some ass and take names. That's what we wanted to see. We didn't want to see freaking 4 newbies that we don't give a fuck about. I'm sorry. I hated freaking Ronda Rousey. She was freaking terrible. She can't act. She has no screen presence. I don't even think she's that hot. There's a freaking dot on her face that's like almost near her eye. Looks like a giant pimple. I thought she was a bitch in the movie. I hated her line, "Men." That's lame. That's not a badass one-liner. I'm sorry. You're not an actress. And then you have the audacity to make fun of Gal Gadot, who's trying to play Wonder Woman in Batman vs. Superman. Go fuck yourself, Ronda Rousey. I don't care what your name is. You can fight in MMA. Stick to MMA because you can't act for shit. The next person, Victor Ortiz. He blink and you miss him. He's a no character. He's like a young Mexican guy or whatever the fuck that just he's there. You don't even remember what he does. Literally, I remember Statham in the first two films that did more. And this guy is a young B, can't act, does nothing for me. Kalen Lutz, with this freaking beard, he's trying to look like Chris Hemsworth. No, motherfucker, you're not Chris Hemsworth. Chris Hemsworth, right here, wait. Chris Hemsworth as Thor, you're not gonna ever play Thor, okay? He is more badass than you because he has a voice of a god. You know, like of a Norse god, which you'll never have. I'm sorry. The only good movie I like with Kellen Lutz is Arena, because at least that was R-rated, it was short, and Samuel Jackson was a good villain. Here, Kalen Lutz is completely forgettable. He's trying to do this like freaking Spider-Man shit, and it doesn't work, and he's a douchebag, just like he was in Legend of Hercules. I don't like this actor. Get him out of my face. Just Arena is the only one I like. And then this other guy, I thought he was a MMA fighter. He's not. He's just some actor. He's so generic. Glenn Powell, the bald-headed guy that hacks into everything, is like, oh, the battery is 10%. We gotta do this before we don't override Mel Gibson's bombs or whatever. It's stupid. He's a forgettable character. And then in the middle of the film, which is so boring, it's the same problem that happened with Age of Extinction. The Expendables, they have to break up, which sucks, and then there's like 20 or 30 minutes of Sly trying to recruit new people, and it was boring. You go from Mexico to freaking New York City to freaking Wyoming to freaking this place and this one and this place. It didn't work for me, and I absolutely hated Antonio Banderas in this movie. He annoyed the shit out of me. He was freaking annoying as hell. He was too energetic. He was like, oh, I want to kill. It's my life. I hated Banderas in this movie. It's the worst performance I've seen him give. And he was like a freaking crack addict, waiting for his next fix. And I'm sorry. He's an old guy. He's an old actor. He's like in his 50s. But he just did not belong in this film. He was an annoying jack-in-the-box. And I wanted to punch him in the face. Every time he talked, I wanted like Dolph to take a shotgun and blow his freaking head off. And Dolph, at least I'll give him this. Dolph was not the butt of the jokes like in the second film, but he had nothing to do in this film. Literally, he was taking a paycheck, and Jet Li doesn't appear in the film until the very end, which is very disappointing. You know, I hated this sequel. I can understand why OCP Communications and Rambo Rap and a bunch of people said this is a mediocre sequel. Even Rotten Tomatoes trashed this film compared to the second one. They gave the second one the pass, but I can see why. It's boring. It's 116 minutes. That's another thing that was a pet peeve. It was almost 2 hours long, and it felt 30 minutes too long. This movie could have been an hour and a half. It still would have sucked, but a lot of the... Just get rid of the freaking new Expendables. They sucked ass. They get captured in the middle of the film, and then the whole third act is about the old guys going back and freaking rescuing these newbies that we don't give a fuck about. Yeah, that's what we wanted in it for a third movie. You killed the franchise. Let me get some water. I'll rant for 10, 15, 20 minutes about this because it's one of the worst films of the year, without a doubt. And I can't believe that this movie was even made. Patrick Hughes, I'm not going to fully blame him because he did not write the movie. Stallone and a bunch of other hacks wrote it, and he should be ashamed of himself for writing this bullshit. Hold on. I'm not even done yet. Kelsey Grammer, literally, he was trying, but he's in the film for like 2 or 3 scenes, and then you don't see him again. Yeah, wasted opportunity, just like in Transformers 4. Harrison Ford, I'll give him credit. He was better in this film than Bruce Willis was in the second one, because they gave him more to do. He was, in the helicopter blowing up things up. It was cool to see Han Solo do that. Harrison Ford is awesome. I love him. Get well soon, man. I want to see you in episode 7. I hope you kick ass there more than in this movie. This movie sucked, and you were one of the best things in it. Arnold, I'll give him some credit. He wasn't boring here. Him and Sly had some decent, on-screen chemistry in the film because, he had the cigar and said, "Get to the chopper." I'm like, okay, there were some lines in the film that I said that was a nice throwback to the 80s. Yeah, "Get to the chopper," which was from Predator, and a bunch of other references. They mentioned 1985, which is the year that Rambo First Blood Part 2, which is far better than this movie. At least that movie wasn't boring. and slide in, need some new young bees to freaking help him out. But yeah, this movie was freaking disappointing. I don't know why this movie was even greenlit. I mean, the second one had its problems, but at least it was fun, and it had some more moments. Okay, next, Mel Gibson is the bad guy. He was trying, but you know, I prefer Eric Roberts in the first film, and even the freaking Spanish dictator, he did more. And you know, the freaking Mel Gibson's fight with Stallone is terrible. It's like shaky cam, and then Stallone is getting his ass kicked, and then at the end he shoots him the same way he shot Eric Roberts in the first film. This film was just a freaking watered down version of the first film. And that's another pet peeve of mine. The film is PG-13 and you can feel it with every gunshot and blow and cut and everything in this movie is toned down. When the guys shoot guys, there's no blood, there's no squibs, there's nothing. There's no blown up heads, nothing. When Wesley Snipes, who I liked in the film because he was trying, and this was his first film back in years, and he was really trying to give it his all, and the stunt work with him was good. But every time he cuts somebody in the neck, there's no blood. There's nothing. I saw more blood in Captain America: The Winter Soldier. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with this movie? You gotta tone it down and you can feel it. It's just like that RoboCop remake. Is the RoboCop remake worse? Yes, because it was more expensive. But I'll get to that at the end of the year when I do my top 10 worst, because I'm gonna rip these movies apart again, and I'm not watching this again. Anyway, yeah, you felt the PG-13. They only cursed in it. Big deal. They said the F word once, and it was Harrison Ford who said it. And I'm glad. I hardly ever get to hear him say that. But yeah, it's just, you know, the violence was just toned down. I've seen more violence in a PG-13 movie from the 80s or from the 90s. U.S. Marshals is a sequel that gets shit on, and that's a better movie than this. That movie was PG-13, but it had blood in it, and it has a good cast. There wasn't a single flawed actor in that main cast, like Tom Lee Jones and Robert Downey Jr. and freaking, what's his face, Joe Pantoliano and a bunch of others, and Wesley Snipes, who was also in that, and he was better in that. That was a better movie. That's the thing. That's what I'm saying. There were better movies. I don't want to live in the past, okay? It's not the 80s anymore. It's not the 90s, and it's not the 2000s. I can accept that. But I'm not going to accept a movie being this shitty in 2014, because we deserve better for our money, Hollywood. This is why this movie flopped. I avoided the new Ninja Turtles because I know I would have hated that too, just for nostalgia. But this film is an even bigger letdown because I had some hope for this. My expectations were like this, and it went even lower because of what I saw. 116 minutes of this, a $90 million budget. What a waste of money. And I doubt it. This movie's gonna sell on DVD. Some of the only redeemable things that I could think about were what I mentioned before. And I will not buy this on DVD. Oh God, no! I would not download this for free on freaking iTunes or on Amazon Instant Video. No, it's a shitty sequel. It did not need to be made this way. Another pet peeve: Robert Davi. He's in the film for like 5 minutes. There it is. He has a scene with Mel Gibson. He says, "Oh, nice doing business with you," and you don't see Robert Davi again. And that's a big freaking wasted opportunity. Robert Davi is awesome. See Maniac Cop 2. See him in The Goonies. See him in freaking, in Die Hard even. He had more screen time. Robert Davi is badass, and you gave him a nothing role in this movie. Are you freaking kidding me? Robert Davi could have owned this movie as a secondary villain right next to Mel Gibson, but no, he's there for 5 seconds and then he's gone. Oh my God, this movie freaking sucks. I can't believe that I sat through 160 minutes of this. And Ronda Rousey, I'm going to tell you right now, I have no bad feelings about women in films. I loved Jennifer Lawrence in The Hunger Games. I loved Scarlett Johansson and Lucy in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, and a bunch of other women too. After seeing Ronda Rousey in this, I welcome an Expendables because they could be better actresses than this bitch right here. I hated this woman in everything she was in the film. I can't believe she's getting more work. She's going to be in Fast and the Furious 7, which thank God that I'm not going to see that because I don't want to see it. Paul Walker's dead. They should have ended it with 6. And stop making comments about Gal Gadot. She hasn't even done a Wonder Woman yet, and you're a bigger bitch for saying that and saying, I should have been Wonder Woman. I can act. Look at my muscles. I could do an arm drag takedown. I could twist a guy like a pretzel. You can't twist me like a pretzel. If I trained hard and I freaking built up some freaking deltoids, I'll break your fucking arm, girl. I'm sorry. Just I can't stand Ronda Rousey in the movie. And then the whole ending, the whole climax. There's spoilers in here, so I'm gonna just tell you right now. If you didn't see the film, there's spoilers. So I'm gonna just spoil everything now. So when I talk about this film at the end of the year, I'm just gonna say what a trash bag it was. The whole third act, with the old Expendables going in and trying to find the new Expendable, the younglings. I'm gonna call them. I'm not gonna call them Expendables. They sucked ass. It's so convenient. It's like, we go here and here and here, and they booby trap this, and we get out quick, and then we cut them free, and then they're loose, and then there's a whole extravaganza of freaking explosions and shit, and it just annoyed me. It was like a cartoon, and not a fun cartoon either. And Arnold says one good line at the end, like near the end. He's like, "I just saved your ass," and I'm like, and then Banderas is speaking in Spanish. Spanish is not funny. Stop putting it in American movies. I'm Hispanic and I don't even like Spanish in movies. I've hated it ever since the 2000s. It's not needed. Okay? If it's not centered in Mexico or whatever, stop putting it in your movies. For God's sakes, it's not funny. It's not entertaining. I'm like, where are the freaking subtitles? I mean, the first film had a lot of Spanish in it, but at least it passed, and they put some freaking subtitles. And I'm sorry, the whole climax was so lame. I'm like, when is this going to end? And I didn't even say that in the first film. In the first film, when Terry Crews was shooting and shooting and shooting with the freaking, that freaking atomic gun, it was badass. I was like, yeah! Here, I was like limp dick, because Terry Crews should have been in this movie more. Almost killing him off and then replacing him with Wesley Snipes. While I liked Wesley Snipes, he didn't have as many badass moments at the end like Terry Crews did in the first film. And there's no blood. I liked his, jingling. That was alright. But, I still miss Terry Crews. I really did. I didn't miss Bruce Willis. I'm glad Harrison Ford was there. He was good in the film with what he had to do. But I'm sorry. there's no excuse to put Terry Crews in a freaking hospital. And then, the ending. It's just the ending from the first film, where Lee Christmas is taking the knife and he's throwing it at the freaking dart board, and then his what was it? Him and Wesley Snipes stole the knives at the same time, and then one of the knives falls, and Lee Christmas, says something, but I forgot. And then when the movie ended, I was like so pissed off. I wanted to throw bottles and freaking anything at the screen. I was so peeved. I can't believe that this movie was made. I'm not Stallone. If you're not gonna try anymore, just retire. You've already had over 30 years of great films, and you had some duds. But as much as your movies were bad in the 90s, like freaking Judge Dredd, and I can watch Judge Dredd. Over this, I can watch it because it doesn't feel PG-13 or Stopping My Mom Will Shoot or Oscar or freaking whatever. I'd rather watch those than to watch this. And I'm not wasting my time with Grudge Match, because it's a comedy that I heard that wasn't funny, and I'm getting tired of this. The Last Stand was better than this movie, because at least The Last Stand was R-rated. I cared about Arnold. I cared about his team more than these freaking douchebag newbies that I didn't give a fuck about, and it was more memorable. The whole end fight with him and the Spanish guy was better than the fight with Stallone and Mel Gibson. I'm sorry. I know people will disagree with me. You can like this film. I don't care. I have seen better action movies. I have dozens of action movies in my freaking shelf that are better than this movie, and some of them flopped, like Shoot 'Em Up. That is a badass movie compared to this, and it's short. It's 80-something minutes. It's not 116. Stop making movies too long, Hollywood. We don't want to see movies that are 2 hours and 30 minutes, and it doesn't need to be. Unless you're going to give us a good story, like Lord of the Rings, or Star Wars, or freaking, anything. Even the Star Wars prequels I'd rather see over this, because at least they didn't disappoint me. They could have let me down massively, and it didn't happen, because I saw them young, I saw them again as an adult, and I still like them. I like the visual effects and everything, but I'll get to that in another video. But this film sucked. It can suck my dick. It can kiss my ass. I'm glad I didn't pay for it. Fuck to every single new actor that was in it except for Harrison Ford, Wesley Snipes, and Kelsey Grammer. Fuck this movie. I hope it never gets. I don't want an Expendables 4 because if this is the best they could do for a third film, I'm not for it. I'd rather see an Expendables or a spin-off like a B-list Expendables that has Mark Dacascos and Jeff Speakman and freaking Lorenzo Lamas and a bunch of other action stars that are better than the ones in here. So, fuck Expendables 3. You can kiss my ass. See you guys later.